Kia ora koutou, katoa, ko Simon Bowden tōko ingoa. I am the director of the public program at Whenua Ūkaipō Connectedness, an exhibition to acknowledge the United Nations at 75 years, featuring 17 artists who each have reflected one or more of the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals in their work. You're at the Kōrero, the public program of the Kia ora piri, come in, of the exhibition, and today we are using the powers of Zoom to bring two of our wonderful international artists to the gallery today to share their thoughts and their work with us. And Kia ora piri, we're going to start with Piri Koi, the curator of the exhibition, welcoming them.
Manoa mai te Māori nuku, manoa mai te Māori rangi. Ko te Māori kai au, he Māori te pua. Ka pakaru mai te pō, tau mai te Māori, haumi e, hui e, taike. Nau mahara mai kōrua, koutou hoki e whakarongo mai ana ki Whenua Ūkaipō ki tēnei wāhi o te upoko o te ika, neira te mihi kia koutou ngā tāngata whenua, ngā mana whenua o tēnei takiwā o tātou. Hoi anō, e rere ana te mihi kia kōrua, e noho tawhiti, e noho ana ki Hawaii, e noho ana hoki ki Ahitereiria. Nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai, mauria mai o kōrua ihi ki tēnei wā. Nau mai, hara mai. Just a really special welcome to you both. So far away, but have been fully committed to this kaupapa of Whenua Ūkaipō, which really celebrates our connection to te taiao, to our environment, and also to each other, and Papa Tuanuku, our Earth Mother. So, nei rā te mihi nui kia kōrua. Ka pai. Nau mai, hara mai. We're really looking forward to hearing all of your beautiful kōrero about your mahi, and thank you for sending your mahi and your images, all your artworks through to us to celebrate in this space where we're acknowledging the significance of our environment today. Tēnā kōrua.
Kia ora, thanks, Piri. Kia ora nei hoa. Nice to see
Aloha.
you. Aloha.
Aloha mai kākou.
Kia ora, Amadeep.
Kia ora.
Nice to see you. Yeah. Yes, please. Lehua, if we could start with you, could you introduce yourself for the people that are watching on Zoom and for the people that are watching here in the gallery?
Yep. Aloha mai kākou, o wau o lehua ana ni waipa ani. No Hawaii moko ke awe mai au, no ka one hanau I ke au kaha o mauna ke au ku'u mauna a me mauna loa o awili ko'u aukai. Mahalo nui no ke kono ana mai I ke ia Whenua Ūkaipō. He kanaka pahe ono wau, ma ke pakaki'i. Mahalo nui, mahalo nui, mahalo nui no ke kono ana wau. Aloha.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Welcome. Yeah. Amadeep.
Kia ora, Sat Sri Akal, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Amardeep Shergill, and before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of both lands that we meet on today, in Australia and New Zealand. I like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and I also extend this respect to Indigenous audience who are today present in the gallery. So my name is Amardeep Shergill. I am currently in Canberra. I have just moved to Melbourne, but I'm visiting my family back in Canberra. So the work that you have seen in the gallery today is a photo montage work. So I work with photography, which we will speak about in a minute. I'm really grateful to be here, and I really would like to take this moment also to thank Jill, Simon, and the whole team, Piri, for being there and being so supportive and teaching me so much through this whole process. I am very, very excited and very inspired by this whole project, and also to ECTA Foundation for actually supporting me with this whole project and giving me a chance to learn so much and engage with the theme of sustainability and how we may move forward in our lives by taking on the Indigenous perspectives and cultural perspectives. And I'm also Even this morning, I love that everybody's speaking a language that I don't understand, but I can understand it and I can feel it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Kia ora, Amardeep, and welcome to you both. We're incredibly excited to have you, your spirit with us. Of course, it arrived with your mahi, with your work, but to have your voices and your images with us here today is it's a great privilege to us, and we are very grateful for you taking part in the exhibition. Mihi nuhi koutou. We've got a little treat planned. Actually, we're going to get Sian, the wonderful Sian, who's done all the digital work, much of the marketing, etc., beautifully for Whenua Ūkaipō Connectedness, to walk around the gallery and show you both for the first time what the exhibition looks like, and also for people that are watching out there on Facebook as well. So I'll just pin her video. There we go. And there's Piri amongst Matua Bay's wonderful clay work, toa, which is of course the work that Piri chose to be one of the key elements of the kaupapa of the exhibition, providing a challenge, rising up from the whenua, rising up from the earth, to remind us that we have a challenge to face, and we do need to be warriors for sustainability and for climate. Here is Bay's work, and of course, behind that is Lehua. It's your work there, here in the Public Trust Gallery. The Public Trust Hall, which is now a gallery. And if you're seeing this for the first time, these walls that the works are on were all bought in and built for us by Cannibal Productions and installed in 24 hours. But he's introducing Lehua's work. Does it look all right, Lehua?
Yes, it does. It came out more fabulous, more than I expected it to be. So thank you so much, and mahalo nui.
Thank you. It looks wonderful, printed on metal, isn't it? It's aluminium. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And we have some images of that we'll share on screen here in a moment, so that we can talk and learn more about the work. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. There you are. We're coming up past Cherie Williams' work, and Shane, that's Cherie Williams' work.
Wow.
Shane Free. This painting arrived wet. I think, is it dry now? And who's that? Hiding in Teresa Reyna's work. That is Jill Oakley. That's the woman who instigated this exhibition. This is her idea. Come over here, Jill. Say hello.
Kia ora, guys. Hi. It's an honour to have you. Aloha. Wonderful to meet you finally. It's such a pleasure, as Simon has said, to have you here with us and joining in this incredible kaupapa that you have honoured us with your presence, with your incredible work. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply honoured and full of gratitude for you both. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to hearing in depth some explanations as everyone here is in the Public Trust. Thank you. Kia ora. Aloha.
Mahalo. Mahalo.
Thank you. Now we're moving into an installation piece by Margaret Old and Elizabeth and Leilani, which has the element of the sound that you're hearing, the tonga portal or traditional Māori instruments coming from the sound dome. And then it's also got, of course, the video work, which is designed to be interacted with, like Piri is doing. And then on the ground there, we have mounds of whenua, mounds of earth, which are representative of kumara patches, places to grow kumara. The whole theme behind this work is hauora, or wellness and healing. Some little characters hiding in that stone. More work by Teresa. Paula Rigby's work, the hanging works. Paula Rigby, of course, a master weaver. And this is Piri Koi's work. That is an image of her daughter, which she explained to us at Wahine Tour, an event we had last night. It was put up in Hagley Park in Christchurch after her daughter made some comments that she didn't feel right in the way she looked in comparison to other people. And Piri said, we need to see more people. Yeah, you want to talk about it? Yeah.
Tēnā koutou. And I think it just might be quite nice when we come to the pieces that we offer. Shurgil, Amardeep, time to speak as well when we come to your works.
I'm going to go deep because I've got images.
Okay, ka pai. Yeah, but this is ko te tino kaupapa ko te mahi ka kai. So really it's about bringing attention to our traditional food gathering practices and how we're connected by being involved in gathering food and gathering our tuna and our eels, but that's how we connect to the mahi, the work of our ancestors. And that's where our youth gain a lot of strength in their own ake mana, their own pride and their connection to the mahi o ngā tūpuna of their ancestors and that place. So tēnā koutou. Ko te tuna.
Wow.
Yeah, te whānau tuna, family of tuna. And then you'll see in that space is a piece by Simon Kahn, and no kaitahu hoki ia, no kaitahu ahau, no ngāpuhi me ngā tikahu. But his piece, it actually represents a tio, and similar to myself, he's involved in our traditional food gathering practices of mahi kakai. Ka pai. Kia ora. And there you'll see Paula Rigby's works just on the side there. She's also kaitahu Ngāti Kahungunu, but her pieces represent ngā puna o Waifetu, our sacred waters, which are in central and Christchurch, central spaces. Our ngā puna is the springs. So I think we'll just come through Kia haere tonu. Sean, you'll see ngā mahi toi no ngā tangata ngō te whenua moimoia, our whanaunga, ngā tangata take no Ahiteria from Australia, our Aboriginal artists. We're really honoured to have their works here. They create their pigments, some of you may already know, from their earth. So all of their paints are created from their whenua, so directly made from their lands. and reference their stories and their narratives. I just really need to acknowledge Tim Melville and the Tim Melville Gallery in Auckland, who has been working with this group of artists, the Warman Arts Centre. So they show their work as a whānau, as a group, a family. They move as a mob, not as individuals. So, nei rā te mihi kia rātou. And just coming to those pieces, te tāhua. And in conversation with these beautiful pieces is your work, Amardeep. So you'll see, we'll come along to your beautiful, stunning works. So they're having a lovely conversation. And you can see there your commentary on our environment, the urban environment. But I'll leave you to speak because we have you here. But I'm just going to pass it over to Simon.
Well, you can keep going, that's really it.
So if we right beside your pieces, so in conversation with your work is a piece by Ella and Tiffany. And theirs is titled Humanity. And what we're really encouraging whānau to do is to pause, to take time to sit and reflect at that, beside that work. She's offered a turu, a seat for people to sit on and put on a headset where they can hear waiata taonga pūro, created by Ricky Bennett, our traditional Māori instruments, but it's a meditative space. So we really wanted to have quite a calm area beside your works in that space there, Amardeep. So koina te whakaaro.
Wow.
Here you'll also see pieces by Shane Tuffrey. Would you like to speak about this work? Simon has a very eloquent way of describing his pieces.
Thank you. Yeah. So the figure on the left, of course, is Neil Armstrong, but the background is not the moon. The background is Te Whanganui Atara, or the moana around Wellington, some images from around Wellington. And what Shane is trying to do here is play with the idea of fake news. I mean, some people think that landing on the moon was fake news, and of course fake news is playing a big role in society at the moment. So he is playing with fake news. Neil Armstrong did not land in Te Whanganui Atara. He landed on the moon.
And beside these pieces, and there's a further connection with the whakaaro of aroha. So a lot of what you'll find within our exhibition is that the feeling of aroha that connects us to te taiao and our environment. Beside these pieces, you come to a really long, meditative, I suppose, reflective drawing by Laura Donkers, who's also in our audience today. She has created this stunning drawing out of charcoal of mahoi. So that's one of our rako, our trees here. She's created her own charcoal, and she created this drawing over a long period during our retreat time, our COVID lockdown time. But this is the first time that that she's been able to experience it in a full extended space. It's 10 meters long, and it's really offers that feeling of walking into the ngahere, walking into the forest, walking alongside our forests.
And on the wall, just opposite that is two photographic works from Joseph Michael. Joseph Michael, an artist based up in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. He went on a journey down to Antarctica and photographed and filmed icebergs. That's the works you're seeing there, and also took sound recordings as well. And he took all of that back to Aotearoa and created works that could be projected onto the sides of large buildings. And he's done two. The first one was the building in the Domain, the Auckland Museum and War Memorial Museum, over one of the festivals up there. And then in 2019 at the Climate Summit at the United Nations in New York, he projected onto the sides of those buildings in dramatic fashion. Extraordinary to see composites of his photographs and video creating what made the buildings look like icebergs. And of course the ice falling off and showing us that we are at risk of losing it. Yeah. When we come to it, yeah. Cherie.
And this is these are pieces by Cherie Willman. She has been learning about her Māoritanga, her Māori identity, and part of that has been drawing on the histories within her whānau. She comes from a whānau of weavers, of Māori weavers, so she's been incorporating patterning and tuku patterning, which is like lattice work that you'll see within our wharenui, within our meeting houses in some of them. So a lot of the symbols that you have here reference the koru, which is the aruhe, the little punga shoots, fern shoots, which is symbolic of growth and new growth and journeys. And so, yeah, it's really exciting to have her mahi in here too as an emerging artist and tangata whenua in this space. Some of her other works have symbols that reference pātiki, which is the flounder. And within our culture, that's a symbol of well-being. And, you know, when you have a lot of pātiki and fish in your community, you're able to feed and manaaki and really look after your people. So he tohu o te oranga, o te tangata, o te hapu. So it's a symbol of well-being and health. So, kia ora. I think we're just linking back to Simon Khan. He has a series here of works titled Tio. So Tio is our oyster, and so it's a similar connection with eeling and mahi kakai and our traditional food gathering practices, and really about bringing our people back into those spaces and connecting with that feeling of what it feels like to be in the environment and to be able to provide the food that your ancestors ate. And so his hope is that his own children will continue on these customary practices of gathering kai. So within his pieces, he honours the tio, oyster. And beside that, we have one of our tohunga toi, highly expert artists. We have Whai Gabriel Bowles, who's Te Ateo a Ngāpuhi, a phenomenal artist who has given a lot within Toi Māori art communities as a teacher, an educator, a printmaker. And you'll see the fineness in her work, which we honour her by calling her a tohunga, highly valued expert within our community. You'll see really finely carved pieces of works, and she carves into lino and woodcut. Her imagery connects with, is referencing the manu. Some of the manu that she shows here are extinct now, but we believe our birds connect us to the higher realms of where our atua, our gods, are, and they're like messengers. Our manu are seen as messengers. They bring messages to us. So koina te hononga, they're the connection to this kaipapa, the environment. Another element that we have another installation on the other side, she's actually created her works from harakeke paper. So that harakeke is our natural flax. Yeah. Oh, Sean's doing a quick shimmy around the corner. There we go. Just to offer you, and you'll see the imagery of the tui, kahu. Tēnā tātua. Kia ora. So if we come back to our main hall, hoki mai, here comes Sean, walking through toa. The beauty of toa is that we've realised too, is one of the kōrero with toa was that Matua Bay was saying that, you know, sometimes you can go out and you can be a toa, you can be a leader by yourself, like a kaiwero, like at and within our welcoming ceremonies. But also at times you need to stand as a ropu. You need to stand takitoru or even more. And this is the stance of a group of warriors that are really taking a stand for our environment and really challenging. We're encouraging people to question what is the stance that you are taking and making for our environment. So this is toa. Ko tai mai te toa, kei wainga I a Ngāti toa. Nō reira. Mauri ora kia Matua Bay, he tohunga toi hoki ia. We're really fortunate to have his artworks within our space. Whenua Ūkaipō, especially as his work directly is pulled from the whenua from his family lands. He works with clays from up near Tokomaru Bay. No Ngāti Porou. And if we come down to our pieces. At the front, we have Tiffany Singh, works by Tiffany Singh, and Meredith, Robert Shaw, aroha mai, but what we also have in our space is a place to honour other iwi and me o rātou hahi, to acknowledge different hahi within our space. So they come from a space of Buddhism, and we have tuahu here where they've created offerings, but they're really, so every morning she's been coming in and attending to her tuahu, to her altar, and offering rainwater and also plants. But it's a way to show that, you know, ko tai mai te wā, we really need to look after our environment and care for our environment, unless in case it will become dry, like the earth, Papa Tuanuku. And that's what you'll see happening around our planet. But this is a tuahu that is honouring their atua in the faith of Buddhism. They've also she's been bringing in flowers as well. So, kia ora. Okay.
Kia ora, Piri. Thank you very much. I'll remove Piri there. There you go, whānau. A nice tour of the gallery for you both. Hope you enjoyed that and it made you feel a bit closer to the works. And while you have been listening, audience who's gathering, actually your numbers here has been listening as well. So we've all had a treat to hear from Piri, the curator, about what's been going on. So I will now share screen. Here we go. Amadeep, we have your works up first. I wonder if you could to tell us the story of these works, and perhaps if you like, you might talk a bit to how they relate to the themes of the exhibition.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that amazing tour. I really do feel like I'm part of that exhibition right now as you're standing there. That's such a privilege to have. I wasn't expecting this today, so thank you so much for that. So for my work, I responded to Sustainable Development Goal number 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. And this was such a process for me because over time, I started to reflect and gain clarity on my own background and where I come from and what that may mean as the world is becoming urbanized. What do villages like? What will they look like? And also, how will urbanization accommodate cultural perspectives? So I started to look at basically nature, traditions, and culture, and how I wanted to. Well, I guess my dream for, as a sustainable development goal, where we're looking at inclusive cities, we're looking at urban environments that are safe and resilient and inclusive. How will they accommodate for, say, people, for example, from the place where I come from or where I was born? So in this work, so towards the right-hand side, so that's the first work it's a triptych. So the first work has in the background village, it has buildings from the village where I was born. And in the foreground, it has a building towards the left-hand side that is from a city. That this building actually may not even be there because this photograph was taken about 9 years ago. So as we speak, we're already seeing, what's happening to traditions and to traditional architecture under urbanization. So my concern, I guess I began as a concerning point for, looking at this development as thinking, okay, how will this shape, for example, the village where I come from? So as I go back in 10, 20 years time, as I do go back quite often, but how will things start to shape up? And I started to think that as it's happened before, it will just start to vanish. And we will start to have a lot more modern, urban looking environments. And as villages will be merged in with cities. And so I wanted to show in this work, so I use photographs. That's my technique of creating this work is called photomontage. So I use photographs that I've taken over years, and I've been photographing since I was a teenager. And I use this imagery over and over again in layers. So in this imagery, I wanted to have, so the black background represents this feeling of void. feeling of unknownness and the fact that we are heading into this all together, but especially because of COVID as well, we've all seen how our lives have shifted. So my work began as a dreaming. I wanted the perspectives of as we are looking at development, I wanted to represent perspective of people in the rural areas, particularly, like I said, it's made me reflect on where I come from. It's made me reflect on also as a woman, where is the perspective, like how is a woman's perspective taken in terms of development, in terms of sustainability, and also I guess the other thing that I wanted to point out was if you look at the village environments, they're highly sustainable, they are resourceful. As a system, and I've lived in a village for 2 years, I've always found it to be incredibly supportive community that's thriving, that's looking out for each other, but also in terms of connection to nature, they're much more connected than, say, city dwellers. So that was my initial thinking process. All of these questions, all of these processes started playing a role, and then I started to lay up these images in a way. So if you look at all three works have this rooftop at the beginning in the foreground. Now that for me kind of became like a theatrical stage where you see a certain scene is taking place, so which is consistent in all three works. So, and the other thing that's consistent is the pigeon and the peacock. And the pigeon and the peacock, again, I like to use symbolism. I like, in India, I grew up in India until I was 11 years old, and I've seen pigeons on the rooftops. It's a very common sight, and also this day and age as well, like going back, one of my favorite things is if I ever spot a peacock on the rooftops. So I wanted to play with this idea and have this peacock transition from this first image, which is on the right hand side, and then it goes into the second image, which can be seen in the gallery, and then it goes into the third image where you see more urbanized environment, and in the third one it's in the middle and it's almost diminished. So if you can zoom in a little bit to in the middle, are you able to do that? So if you go to the third work, and if you go right in the middle where the peacock is, so for me that's symbolic of what happens, the transition, from a rural to urbanized environment is the nature diminishes, the freedom of the peacock to dance on rooftops obviously diminishes, and the building in the middle there is a building from Fitzroy in Melbourne. It's one of the Victorian style buildings, and I wanted to juxtapose that in the middle of the city, the two cities that I've photographed. One is on the right hand side is Perth, and on the left hand side, sorry, still in the same work, Shan. So the dark one is Perth and the one in the light is Sydney. So in the middle is Fitzroy, and anybody who knows Fitzroy area, it's so beautiful. The buildings are just amazing. And so that's the sort of dreaming I have, is that could we accommodate these buildings? Could we accommodate these traditional perspectives and architecture and language as we're developing? And the women in the foreground are, again, I work with women-centric themes. I feel like as Punjabi women as well, we're emerging, and so the perspective of these women and perspective of cultural perspectives, I think for me are very, very important. I always like to look back and see how I'm being influenced by my background and my upbringing. So I wanted to have these women in the forefront. I wanted to have them in the main, the theatrical stage, so that as we're developing and we're becoming urbanized, I hope this is not forgotten. So that was my starting point, and the process of creating is very intuitive for me. So every time when I'm creating a piece of work, I often like to, there's lots of layers to it. So every single element that's in each of the images has a story. So the pigeons there represent migration, but also so in the middle, for example, there's no human beings. It's just the environment, nature, but also it's a place, a bit like what happened in COVID. It's a place, I hope it's where audience stand and feel, why aren't there any humans? Because that's what I was questioning. So if we are not, you know, stepping up to sustainability and accepting climate change, you know, what will happen, or how will things go about, or how will animals also go about? And for me, through COVID, one of the best things has been, there's a story about peacocks also coming back on streets in India, in Chandigarh. So as I was making this work, actually, it was interesting that these stories were also, you know, seen in the media. So I found that a good correlation. So yeah, so I guess I was questioning, how will we accommodate, you know, nature and environment sort of always exist in a state of flux, like things are always changing, and so it's inevitable, but I wanted to bring together elements that matter to me, and environments that matter to me. So I'm in between those two environments. When I go back to India, I'm from a village, and when I'm here, I'm in Australia, I'm in the city. So it really gave me, this project gave me a chance to look deeply and study a bit more closer. For example, the village system as well. I was able to understand that this is already a very sustainable community we're looking at, and yes, it could be developed. But so I guess as I was juxtaposing these different elements together, I was trying to dream of a, you know, so the whole triptych represents a dream where different elements come together, but also different perspectives are considered, different language, like language shouldn't be a barrier. So perspective of the villages is just as important in terms of looking at sustainability and development and of rural communities, as a learning point, as we're all learning. So that was the basis of this work, I guess.
Thank you, Amardeep, for that wonderful deep dive into the work. People are going to clap.
Oh.
Hopefully you can hear that, you're getting applause. Does anybody have a question for Amardeep? Would you like to come forward and ask her? If you come and stand here, then she can see you, and we can hear you out there as well.
Hi, Amardeep, Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.
My name is Manjit, and I've written to Amardeep how wonderful her work is. Immediately on seeing the painting, I felt connected. I went back to my village. I was not born in India. I was not born in a village. I was born in Malaysia, in a little town called Ipoh. But I've been to India several times, and immediately the connection was there. I could recall. What I found so interesting was that the connectedness of people. There's no issue of privacy. If you look at that painting where you see that Havelis, the buildings, there's a balance between my space and your space, but we are connected. There's no such thing as peeping into my area or coming into my space, nothing. I recall the rooftops where you get together with your peacock in the mornings. You see the peacock coming, you feel good. You feel the connection between nature and you in the village. But what is happening, and which has been captured very well by Amardeep, is the change that is occurring in the villages. As money is flushing into the villages by people like me who are staying overseas, we are taking our space out of the village and putting it into the fields. We build big houses, big new buildings in the village fields, which were the production centers. They have been now places where you have these big palaces coming up by people who call themselves non-resident Indians. And what was a production place has become a place of residence, but away from everybody else. You get swimming pools, you get the usual amenities. Now that is changing the scene of the village life in India. And you've seen it change here as well. If I want to go to a Maori village, I can't go to a Maori village. There are places that have been put up for tourists as a Maori village, but there's no one place where you have a natural existence. Now, I think your sustainability goals asks you this question: how do we bring this back and bring back the perspective that we have or had previously? So Amardeep, congratulations, well done. You have brought village into Wellington. I felt connected straight away, but unfortunately I can't stay a little longer because I have another appointment to go to, but I congratulate you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope this continues elsewhere too. Like I told Jill, that this exhibition has to go across to the world. It has so many messages at so many levels and by so many people. Well done. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your perspectives, and I really love the insight that you brought. Yes, definitely the work reflects, and also it creates this nostalgic feeling, which I've been receiving messages from people. It's really interesting that it all reminds us of all our villages back in India. Thank you so much.
Nahua, welcome. We have some images of your work, just these selections here, and it'd be wonderful if you could take us through the intent, the ideas, the process, whatever you like.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So mahalo nui for again inviting me, and you know, I'm just I am a visual artist, but more than that, I am representing all of those who I descend from. And so first and foremost, I need to acknowledge them, and I need to acknowledge the fact that I come from mounds and mounds of descendants. I descend from a mounds and mounds of ancestral connection to our environment. So when being tasked with this particular exhibition, and when initially getting the request by PD to be a part of it, I looked deeply into what the UN was projecting for sustainability for 2030, and in my work and in the work that I have been doing in my most recent work, I looked at number 6, which is the UN's clean water and sanitation sustainability for 2030, and it brought me back to just about little over a year ago, when we were seeing our people standing up for our environment. And it had nothing to do, in my opinion, with whether science should precede culture or culture should precede science. It had everything to do with what are we doing to our environment that has led us to a space where we're having to bring in resources. So Hawaii is very small in comparison to the massive amount of the Pacific, and land-wise, we're even much smaller than we are from Aotearoa and the land bases and the acreages. But in this small space and in this in our islands, we are tasked with maintaining resources that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. We have active volcanoes that, as we saw in 2018, erupted in the middle of a subdivision. And that's our environment having a direct conversation with us, saying, okay, humans, we've had this space. What are you doing with it? And when I got asked to be a part of this, I looked back in that, and I had to dig really deep and understand what is my part in this as a visual artist. And so you see the amount of images that are on the wall, and thank you so much for that little walkthrough, because it's our first time, especially for those of us international artists that are far away, and would have loved to have been there, but again, the environment dictates, and COVID said, no, it's time for the earth to heal. And so you know, humans, you stay where you're supposed to be and we'll figure it out and let the environment heal on its own. So I wanted to be sure to start with this particular image. It's called Puolo Offering. And while everything was happening on our Mauna and the fight for our environment to stand as the human race, to stand in protection of an entity that's our Mauna is where our water, our freshest waters come from. And when we deplete those aquifers, we leave nothing left for those who live off of the land. And that's including Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians alike, anyone that needs to survive downslope. If we start penetrating that source of water, we start losing that access to it. And while everyone was gathering, in my head, I'm looking at the little finite details of things that are happening. And so I crawled away from the crowd and was able to capture one family's offering to the environment, saying, we are here, we hear your cry, and what can we do better? What can we do better as a human race? Not just as Kanaka Maoli, and not as just Indigenous people, but just as humans in general. And so if you move on to the next two slides, it brings me to my left slide, which is of a female deity that represents Haumea, or ancestral mother, who we believe as Kanaka Maoli has created not just the land and the earth and everything in it, but all the things that live on it. And we look to the right image, and that is Kanaloa, and that is our god of the sea. And we look at those. I looked at these two elements and said, the only way we're going to understand clean water and sanitation and the number 15 UN sustainability, life on land, is if we actually go back. We have to go back. We have to go back to the times in which our ancestors were so in tune with their environment that elements ruled and we could sustain ourselves. And that's what sustainability is to me as a visual artist, is going back to these entities and these deities and understanding, like, we need to continuously live with them, not live apart from them, but actually live with them. And so in these images is a visual creativity of how I would see us returning back to the whenua, or reconnecting back to our spaces and our land and our oceans and our dome that this earth resides in. And then you can go to the next slide. And so we push forward, and COVID hits, and everybody's stuck in their tracks, and people are pretty much said, our environment says, do not move. And in the process of all of that, if you're familiar with Hawaii and the 1.6 million people that reside on one little island with very little resources, and you see the massive amount of buildings that are erected on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly, in one small little town or one small little island, what this pandemic has taught us, if anything, is it's really highlighted the United Nations sustainability for 2030, because we have to really stop. And this, I end my show, or I'm ending this exhibition with this particular image for the mere fact that it is shut down. That city has shut down, and it was time for our earth to start to heal again. And so now we have our own people going back to our own waterways, enjoying the practices of our ancestors, like surfing. But beyond that, it is us understanding that we have done this to this earth. What are we going to do to clean it up? And are we doing enough? Are we actually doing enough to take care of the environment before we lose everything? So I hope that makes sense. And I hope the show, I have to say though, Simon, PD, you, Jill, you guys have done, and everyone, all the hands that have gone into the show. Like, when I saw how you've strung my images in sequence, that's what Whenua Ūkaipō is to me. That's the connectedness. I didn't have to physically be there for you to see what my vision was, to see my deities and my ancestors on the top, for us to praise them above everything else, for us to understand that they are hierarchies for us, and we must return back to that level. But also to have it come right around to the very end as it circles around. How you guys hung the show from my images, you have done such a justice to it. And I am so proud, and I am sure my ancestors are very proud of the representation that we have for our lahui here in Hawaii. So mahalo nui, mahalo nui, mahalo nui.
Thank you, Whenua. It's an absolute honour, especially to hear you say that your ancestors would be proud of the work that was done to hang those images. Pity crying, the picture might be. I feel a bit like it too. And that connectedness across the oceans, spirit to spirit, people to people, to think that the work is by chance in the right order is a huge gift to all of us. I'm just listening to you talk, the drama that is Hawaii and the volcano. You must, yeah, I can feel that presence of the land in the work and in your spirit. Can you talk a bit about what it's like living in that environment and how it impacts the work?
Yes, interesting question, because I've had this discussion just recently. To speak about this space is to live it. I don't know any other way to explain to anyone when people ask, how did you run from the volcano erupting? No, the volcano, she's a part of us as much as we are a part of her. We coexist. And that's a testament that we still, in today's 2020, pandemic or not, still exist with our environment if we allow our environment to still coexist with us in our everyday doings. And so when people often ask me, like, how does it feel to live in where your tsunamis are coming? And I live right on the coast, so we definitely have a lot of threats of earthly movings around the globe that affect us here in Hawaii. And so I live right where the ocean is. I can see it, and we live in it. We don't run from it. We coexist with it, and it's the only way to understand that you are very much of your elements as your elements are of you. And that's what to me, that's what the UN sustainability is all about, is that when did we become so separated from our environment to the point where we now have to create sustainability points to return back to that space? So when people ask, what is it like to live in this environment here in Hawaii? It's a gift, it's a blessing, and it is my kuleana, my responsibility to maintain, even if it means that I'm going to maintain those stories through my photography.
Oh, thank you. And it is hugely powerful to have those stories documented and shared in this manner. And I think, you know, people wake up when the earth speaks to them, and we can do that through your work. We're just about out of time, so would you both like to make some little parting comment, and then I hope that Piri will come and close for us. Amardeep, need your mic on.
I'm moved by all of that I've just heard. This for me is the winning point in all of this, is the amount that I have learned as a person, as an artist, for having this privilege of knowledge that wasn't something that I guess I wouldn't have had a chance to meet, first of all of these artists and see their perspective, but also to learn from that perspective of, like you said, what has happened that now we're going back to something that was already there. And it's really important that we acknowledge that. We acknowledge the relationship that communities already have, you know, they are in one with nature. You know, as we're going on and creating sustainable world, what's already, like what I see in there is already very sustainable. It's so beautiful. That connection is something that what we need to learn from. That's what we need more of. That's the perspective we all need to hear more of. when we're talking about sustainability and climate change. So I'm so privileged to be part of this discussion, but also to have your perspective. And thank you to everyone for making me part of this work. And working on this project for more than 6 months has really changed the way I see things. So I can't, and also going through COVID, I can't go back into creating art without this consciousness, without this knowledge. And even from today, I will go back and read more about all of the works that I've just seen. And that was another privilege to have. I wasn't expecting a gallery tour. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for listening as well.
Kia ora, Amardeep. Thank you so much. Lahua, any last comments before I invite Piri to close for us? Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much, mahalo nui, for inviting me here into this realm of just beyond sustainable understanding, but really giving our ancestors a space in today's world to exist. I couldn't do what I do if I didn't acknowledge who I came from, who I descend from, and I couldn't continue to do what I do if I wasn't clear that we're original storytellers. I'm just a mere canvas on how the story gets written. And I owe a lot of all of that to my people, my aunts, my kupuna, my ancestors, because they're the ones driving. They're the ones that's driving the vessel. I'm just the one that's showing it to the world. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Piri and Simon and Jill, and all of the many hands that have gone into putting such an awesome show. I would have loved to have been on a plane and been in Wellington today.
Next
and
time.
for the whole show next time. But again, our environment speaks for us. Sometimes we don't listen. And so now we're having to sit back, take a deep breath, listen, and let it run its course. But so thank you so much. Ke aluhi a ka ko'opolo, mahalo nui for this input.
Tēnā kōrua, tēnā koutou nei rā te mihi aroha kia koutou. Just wanted to really thank you both for sharing so much and really just taking a stand right from the beginning when I reached out to you both, when Jill reached out to you, Amardeep, and Lehua, when we reached out to you, it was just such an excitement to feel your commitment to your yes, we're going to take a stand and we're going to be involved in our exhibition. So, nei rā te mihi nunui kia kōrua, me o kōrua tūpuna ngā atua e te ake ana i a kōrua. I just wanted to really support your words, both of your words in Lehua, and acknowledging all of those ancestors that are with us as we journey within this pathway of arts and mahi toi. So nei rā te mihi kia koutou katoa. Just bringing it back to Whenua Ūkaipō and Toa, and what I feel within this exhibition is, once again, we're really standing together, connected in our stance for the environment as artists. And, at times we need to stand as a whānau of warriors, gentle warriors. Some of us are gentle, some of us are really proud and loud, and everybody has a space to share their visual voices. And I just wanted to tino mihi kia koutou, ai kia tū kaha, kia tū maia, and to continue. I just want to share one other kōrero in terms of what you were saying about looking to our past and acknowledging that as solutions for the future. It's wonderful to hear about the peacocks coming back into your communities. In India, we had that happen too with the earthquakes, and all of a sudden in the middle of the city we had our kereru, our wood pigeons, return back because we had no cars in the middle of the city. They couldn't come in, but they came and they became tangata whenua. They were the presence on the land as our manu and our birds. So I really feel for that. We have a saying, titiro whakamuri, anga whakamua, look to the past and the ways of our ancestors and strive to create a future forward. And I think sometimes it's also just about taking that next step. What's your next step? He ha te haere ki mua. So, nei rā te mihi. I just want to especially thank tēnei tangata, Simon, Hika. Within our culture, we've always got te tahatane, the male side and our female side. And just wanted to really acknowledge his stance in this space, really holding the space in terms of our public talks. So tino mihi kia koe. And Sian, working her magic behind the screen over there, bringing us all together. And to our firefighter Jill, who's driving at the back. So ngā mihi nui. I'm going to just say a closing karakia koutou mō tātou. So, anei me inoi tātou. Unuhia te korowai aroha, te korowai rangi Māori e ki rongi a tātou i tēnei o ngā rangi. Kia māma te haere o ngā mahi ki te ao. Mai Aotearoa nei, kia kite te ata ko e nei kaupapa toi, whakanui ana i ngā toi Māori, ngā toi o ngā iwi take, ngā toi o Aotearoa ki te ao. No reira, me mena kitia mai i nei kaimahi toi mea o rātou whānau, ngā tangata puku mahi ana, ngā tangata e haere ana ki te ao. Mena kitia mai korowahia i nei tangata. Kia māma te haere ki mua. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora.